This is the hardest video that I think I will ever make. Not because of the effort that went into it, or the time it took to edit, or how carefully crafted this video is. I have plenty of those to pick from. This video is hard because of the potential family I will have to face, and the potential friends I will lose from making this video. As hard as all of that is, the comments for this video will be disabled. I don't think that I'm strong enough to face the music and have this video be the place that people are discussing what I'm about to talk about. It's taking every ounce of bravery that I have just to make this. Before we begin, there are two things I need you to understand. One, with the exception of one specific point in this video, I'm not belittling anyone's beliefs or worldview. While I do hope to change some people's mind, it's not my intention to make you feel like your worldview is wrong or that you are less of a person. Two, I am a Christian of some sort. I couldn't even tell you what type of Christian because there are so many denominations that I disagree with, but the two important factors that I want you to know is that, one, I believe in God and Jesus Christ, who died for our sins, and two, I got this earring that serves as a reminder to myself of who I am and what I want to be. I am His, and I want to be His warrior for peace. It's that second part that brings me here today. Because until we can sit down and have a civil discussion with those that we fundamentally agree with again, it doesn't matter what side of the fence you come down on, it's my belief that you're being controlled. It's a little bit of a derailment to my topic here, but it is my own personal conspiracy theory that neither prominent political party stand for what they once stood for. Now it's all about holding power, and the right has conditioned Christians to be their followers, while the left has conditioned LGBT people to be their followers. And the truth of the matter, I believe, is that when you look at the policies that each of those parties are supposed to be putting forward, both are important for both groups of people. Unfortunately, it's easier to control said people if you have a common enemy. But I digress. Here's the thesis for this video. In a perfect world, I am pro-life. Now that statement might come off as unsurprising given that I just disclosed that I'm a Christian, but let's break that down for a second. Because yes, I believe in the divinity of life, I believe we were made in God's image, and yes, I believe that every baby aborted is a tragedy. That much is obvious given the basic pro-lifer's MO. But I did say in a perfect world. Because in a perfect world, women would be able to choose who they had children with if they wanted children. In a perfect world, we wouldn't need abortions for unwanted pregnancies because we'd have free access to things that help us practice safe sex, like birth control or IUDs, or at the very fucking least, we wouldn't have the majority of condoms locked behind some sort of glass case. And of course, in a perfect world, women wouldn't be raped. And in a perfect world, there's no chance that a mother would die in childbirth. And every child would be born healthy, and every child would be wanted. We very much do not live in that world. First of all, not everybody shares my specific beliefs. Nor would I expect them to. I would say to someone, I have seen too much to deny God exists. I've tried before, I can't do it. There are some atheists who would use the exact same start of that sentence to claim the exact opposite. As a Christian, of course, I want everybody to be saved. As an American, I see this difference in beliefs as invaluable and beautiful. So, accounting for the fact that not everybody is going to share that belief, we're already faced with a bit of a conundrum before we even begin. Though I do suspect that even then, in my perfect world that I outlined, even a number of pro-choice people would find my perfect world scenario as a acceptable proposal. But again, we'll never know because we don't live in that world. Safe sex is hidden behind a paywall. Contraceptives can be difficult to get a hold of, and increasingly, women's healthcare is becoming more and more inaccessible in America. We don't live in a perfect world. Every year, 300,000 to 400,000 women get raped annually. Answer me this honestly. If you had a daughter and she was raped, could you look her in the eyes with all the trauma that she's going through and everything that she's trying to process right now, could you honestly look her in the eyes and tell her that if she didn't deliver that child, she's a terrible person, or that you would kick her out, or that she's going to hell? We don't live in a perfect world, so unfortunately, there are some people who would answer yes to that question. If you're one of those people, get the fuck off of my video. I have nothing more to say to you. For those who are still with me, understand, I know people who are Christian who have delivered children that they didn't choose to have, and they love that child more than anything. I firmly do not believe that that would be everyone's response. And at that point, who am I to be able to tell anyone what the right choice is to make in that scenario? Am I supposed to tell them having a child will possibly make everything better, considering the trauma that you're going through? I don't have that answer for anyone. I firmly believe, and especially in the case of non-believers, that at that point, the choice is yours to make. And honestly, I couldn't say if either choice is the right one in that scenario. We don't live in a perfect world. Medical complications happen all the time that either endanger the life of the mother, or there's a high likelihood that the child won't live long past birth. This is another area that I don't have a clear answer on. Of course, if it's potentially life-threatening, then clearly it's up to the mother at that point. A lot of pro-life people like to use the saying, in 100% of abortion cases, someone dies. If you have to choose between yourself and your child, especially in those cases where there's a chance that neither of you make it, again, how am I supposed to tell you in that scenario that it is not the woman's choice to make? See, the whole reason that I even am making this video in the first place is that we all like to pretend that abortion is this cut and dry, black and white stance that you have to take and make sweeping statements that we know nothing about on both sides, without even considering the fact that in the moment when it comes down to it, it is never, ever an easy choice for a woman to make. Even children who, as I said, in all probability they don't live long past birth, I don't have an answer for that. Because we don't live in a perfect world. Babies are born with undeveloped lungs. My own father, the most wisest, smartest man I have ever known personally, was born a stillbirth. His heart wasn't beating. And I'm sure I could dig up many more stories like that. And for every story that I could find, I'm sure that I could find 10 other stories where the baby didn't make it. I don't have the answer, especially for non-believers. I can't tell you you should definitely take this hypothetical 1 in 10 chance, especially when that's a number I just made up now. As a believer, I do believe it is in God's hand at that point, but I can't ignore the quality of life that that child may or may not have once they are brought into this world. Especially if that child is unwanted, because we don't live in a perfect world. The catch-all solution pro-life people tend to pose is to just put them up for adoption. Can you imagine that life for a moment? From an early age, you have to cope with the fact that for whatever reason, either their parents didn't want you or couldn't keep you. You're shown off to various families who have to decide if you're a good fit for that family. And those are the families that are well-intentioned. That isn't even calling into attention those who foster kids then abuse them, belittle them, or use them for some other manner of labor or tax cut or whatever other monetary benefit they get from the government. Again, there are people who have lived those lives and are happy that they are here and that they made it. But to ignore the fact that our foster system is far from perfect and that so many children are struggling is asinine. With all of that being said, there are some women in this country who will still want or need an abortion for one reason or another, either the ones that I've listed before or the probably 10 other scenarios that I can't even think of right now. And I find the term pro-life just a little disturbing. You know why? Because in most cases, there's only one life being even remotely thought about when it comes to people who claim themselves as pro-life. For those women who, for one reason or another, are seeking an abortion, justified or otherwise, for whatever moral system you may have, the fatality rate goes up for women if they can't have access to a medically safe abortion. You cannot tell me that you are pro-life and not take the life of the woman into the equation. And none of that addresses the fact that in America, this isn't just a moral issue. It's a legal one. It's a medical legal issue. Did you know that there are a handful of medical procedures that are, under the letter of the law, classified as an abortion that have nothing to do with a baby being conceived? If you didn't know that, don't feel too surprised. I didn't know that until just a year ago. I mean, it doesn't come into our purview of awareness because, in most cases, why would it? All of this to say that in a perfect world, I would be pro-life. But when you take everything into consideration, when you treat this not as a means for irresponsible women to have an out from raising a child they didn't want, but as the complex issue that so many factors go into that most people are unaware of, in the imperfect world that we live in, I have to support pro-choice policies. Not only because I believe that no woman should have to have a child that they don't want, but because there are too many factors right now that anyone in their right mind would be remiss just to hand wave away.